Thank you for tuning in to the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the material. Recently, I saw this post of Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses is not a cult. First, I was a little skeptical because the grammar was off, but apparently they made this post. So let's have at it. Let's take a deeper look. In this video, we will examine what it means to be in a cult. But first, we're going to take a look at what Jehovah's Witnesses have said in regards to the matter in their defense.
Are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? No. Jehovah's Witnesses are not a cult. Rather, we are Christians who do our best to follow the example set by Jesus Christ and to live by his teachings. What is a cult? The term cult means different things to different people. However, consider two common perceptions regarding cults and why those perceptions don't apply to us. Some think of a cult as being a new or unorthodox religion. Jehovah's Witnesses have not invented a new religion.
Are Jehovah's Witnesses being intellectually honest here? If you do some quick research about Charles Taze Russell online, you can see that the religion stemmed from his creation. No doubt about it, he was the originator of the Watchtower magazine that is still being printed to this day by Jehovah's Witnesses.
On the contrary, we pattern our worship after that of the first-century Christians, whose example and teachings were recorded in the Bible. We believe that the Holy Scriptures should be the authority on what is orthodox in matters of worship. Some think of a cult as being a dangerous religious sect with a human leader. Jehovah's Witnesses do not look to any human as their leader.
Again, this person is not being intellectually honest with you, because if you look up the definition of leader, it says the person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. Well, throughout the life of a Christian, we do not hear voices from Jehovah. We don't hear voices from the sky from Jesus. Jehovah's Witnesses hear the voices of the 8 leaders that reside in Warwick, who are also known as the governing body. As a Jehovah's Witness, you are required to follow the leadership of these 8 men. There is no doubt about it. Number 1, Kenneth Cook. Number 2, Sam Hurd. Number 3, Jeffrey Jackson. Number 4, Stephen Lett. Number 5, Jared Loesch. Number 6, Anthony Morris. Number 7, Mark Sanderson. And number 8, David Splain. These men write all the doctrines and make all the decisions, the major decisions for the religion. And if you don't follow suit, you will be excommunicated, especially if you do not show a repentant attitude.
Rather, we adhere to the standard that Jesus set for his followers when he stated, "Your leader is one, the Christ." Matthew 23:10. Far from being a dangerous cult, Jehovah's Witnesses practice a religion that benefits themselves and others in the community. For example, our ministry has helped many people to overcome harmful addictions, such as the abuse of drugs and alcohol. In addition, we conduct literacy classes around the world, helping thousands learn to read and write. And we are actively involved in disaster relief. We work hard to have a positive impact on others, just as Jesus commanded his followers to do.
Today we will take a look at the BITE model put together by Stephen Hassan, who holds a PhD. The B stands for behavior control. The I stands for information control. The T stands for thought control, and the E stands for emotional control. As we go through the various points, please document whether your religion has those qualities or not.
So one of the things that helped me get out of the moon cult back in 1976 was the work of Robert J. Lifton, who was a military intelligence psychiatrist in the 50s studying Chinese communist brainwashing techniques. And he wrote a landmark book called The Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. And in this book, he outlined 8 criteria that any environment may be judged as a brainwashing or a thought reform environment. And that book was critical, and that model was critical to helping me understand what had happened to me in terms of my recruitment into the Moonies, the 3-day workshop, the 7-day workshop, and all the other indoctrination features. And based on his model, I developed the BITE model of mind control. The B stands for behavior control, then there's information control, thought control, and emotional control. And under each one, and this is on my website at freedomofmind.com, sleep deprivation, change of name, change of clothing, being in a controlled environment with rewards and punishment, needing to ask permission, and information control, where the group doesn't give you informed consent when they're recruiting you. They either lie to you, or they hold back critical information, or they distort information, or they use information from other sources to manipulate you, to make you feel like you're having mystical experiences, when in fact it was information supplied either by you or by someone else about you. They use spies, they have you do confessions and use that material against you. And essentially, the BITE model offers my cutting-edge approach for how anyone can evaluate whether or not they've been a victim of mind control. And in the new book, Freedom of Mind, I'm shifting away from the term mind control because it elicits the idea of somehow somebody with chips in your brain or some type of puppeteer holding it, which in some ways is the case psychologically. But we're moving towards the term undue influence, which is a legal term, which talks about how a discrepancy of power is used to undermine a person's ability to think for themselves and make good decisions for themselves. And so models have been developed now. My friend Alan Shefflin, law professor at Santa Clara University, for example, has developed the model where you take into account the predisposing vulnerabilities of a person, as well as the sophisticated techniques of influence that an individual or group are using to combine to basically create what we refer to in the mental health field as a dissociative disorder, where a person is split from themselves and a new cult identity is created to suppress their real identity. And so the question that people ask me often is, well, how do you know if you're under undue influence or mind control, or that you've been brainwashed? And what I say is you wouldn't. That's part of the dilemma, because your operating system, your mind, has been co-opted if you have been. And so for me, the answer really is you need to take a time out from the environment that you're in and the people who are influencing you. You need to go to a separate geographical location and separate yourself from that. You need to study models of mind control and undue influence, including Lifton's model and the BITE model. You need to deliberately seek out critical information about the leader, the doctrine, and the group, or the people that you are involved with, which is directly in contradiction to what the group tells you. Don't talk to those people, they're negative. Or don't talk to those people, they've fallen away from God. Or those people are under Satan's control. You want to find out for yourself and trust that you have the ability to know and to fact check whether or not things are true or not. And in that context, I ask people to reflect back when they first met the person or first met the group. What did they think they were getting involved with? And compare it with what they now know, having been involved with the group for weeks or months or years. And ask themselves the question, if I knew then what I know now, would I have ever gotten involved? And if the answer is not in a million years, then you know that you've been under undue influence. And congratulations, you're on your way to freedom. Take care.
For those of us that wear glasses, glasses contribute greatly to how we see reality. Religion is the same way. Religion is the lens through which many men see God. In fact, many religions use the Bible to maintain control over people. And so today we're going to examine the BITE model: behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. Okay, so number one, we'll take a look at behavior control from a cult. Number one, they regulate individuals' physical reality. At Bethel, we were told we lived in a spiritual paradise. Number two, dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. At Bethel, we had what they call 3-men rooms. In other words, you'd have 3 roommates in a room of 200 square feet. Number 3, when, how, and with whom the member has sex. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses at large do not engage in sex unless they are married. Number 4, control types of clothing and hairstyles. At Bethel, you cannot wear a bald fade, where the sides of your head is bald, and other types of hairstyles that are very common these days. Okay, number 5, regulate diet, food and drink, hunger and or fasting. Jehovah's Witnesses are not big on fasting, although many religions and cults practice a lot of fasting. Number 6, manipulation and deprivation of sleep. Number 7, financial exploitation, manipulation, and or dependence. When I first arrived at Bethel, the monthly stipend was $90 a month. Over a 10-year span, it only increased to $120. So I would call that financial exploitation, free labor, something to that effect. Called an internal commissary, where if you didn't want what was on the menu, you could go and purchase milk, coffee, tea, ham, cheese, cereal, Hot Pockets, you name it. It wasn't until about 8 or 9 years into my Bethel career that I learned that the brothers were marking up the prices to make a profit off of the Bethelites. So imagine that. They give you $90 a month, and they're making a lot of that back by selling you goods in the commissary for the Bethelites. Another story I'd like to share is that George Couch, who was a very prominent brother in the organization, once he was being interviewed by a TV radio station or something to that effect. And I remember distinctly they were making a comparison of the catalog of various religions, or various corporations, I should say. And Jehovah's Witnesses, as far as profits, came in maybe 2 or 3. And so when they interviewed George Couch, they said, hey, you guys came in 2nd or 3rd place. George Couch distinctly said, yeah, but we have free labor. And that was a key point to me waking up from the religion. Okay, number 8, restrict leisure, entertainment, vacation time. At Bethel, as long as you had the vacation time that was accumulated, you could go on vacation as much as you like. As far as entertainment, obviously you shouldn't engage in things that were very questionable. But when it came to basketball, volleyball, tennis, there was so much entertainment available. The only thing the brothers would encourage was to do so in modesty. And also, everyone knew that if you get hurt, you're pretty much going home. And it really didn't matter how many years you had been there. Really strict policy about getting hurt and going home. Number 9, major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. We had a lot of group indoctrination. In fact, your early morning worship would start at 7 a.m. Then you would have breakfast, go to work, come back and pray together as a family, have lunch, go back to work, end the day at 5. Then after that, you could go out to your meetings. If you had an off evening, usually that was used preparing for a part on the meeting, a part on morning worship, a part somewhere. Saturdays, you would usually work a half a day. If not, you would go out in field service to knock on doors. And then Sunday, you would go out to your local meetings and also engage in field service afterwards. So a lot of group indoctrination was present, group think, as you know, in being a Jehovah's Witness, as well as other religions usually have that group think concept. Number 10, permission required for major decisions. That's obvious. Number 11, rewards and punishment used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. Jehovah's Witnesses are built on rewards. You start off carrying the mics, then you get to read the watchtower, you become a ministerial servant, you become an elder, you become a Bethel elder, you become a branch helper, you become a branch member, and then certain ones even make it to the level of being at the governing body. There's always another level, there's always another reward, right? On the flip side, there is a lot of punishment, and we know that the ultimate punishment with the Jehovah's Witnesses, which they normally don't tell you when you come in, is that you can be shunned and no longer speak to your friends and family. So let me give you some examples of punishments used to modify behaviors at Bethel. There was a brother that worked at Bethel office for many years. In fact, he was at Bethel more than 25 years. He went on vacation with his wife, who happened to be much older than him, and he beat her to a pulp. On vacation in Arizona, in front of local friends who were not Bethelites. When he came back to Bethel, they moved him to building services from working in Bethel office. He was stripped of being a Bethel elder. And I'm not sure, but I think they deleted him as being an elder in the local congregation, although I'm not 100% sure. At Bethel, when a person loses their responsibility, they call that losing your stripes. So he lost his stripes, and he was walking around like a stripeless zebra. After maybe about 6 or 7 years, I think he was able, no, less than that, I think about 3 or 4 years, he was able to get his privileges back. And today, I just checked, he's back working in Bethel office. Another brother used to be the overseer of the computer department, IT, right? He had been at Bethel 30 years. And he attended, I think it was the Spring Valley congregation in New York. While at Bethel, 30 years married, he got involved romantically with a younger single sister in the congregation to the extent that he went out and purchased her a ring. Now, I don't know all the details and every little thing about it, but they removed him. Right? Punishment used to modify behavior, right? Because they have to make an example out of you. They removed him as overseer of the computer department. They stripped him of being a Bethel elder. He used to conduct watchtower. They stripped that from him. And I believe in the congregation, they removed him as an elder. I'm not sure. I just know what happened at Bethel. Again, he lost his stripes. After several years, he got his privileges back. And today, I just checked with another Bethelite. He is serving in the services department, dealing with others people's sins throughout the world. Isn't that amazing? But now you get to see what punishments used to modify behaviors, because other guys are going to look on and say, hey, if I do the same thing, if I beat my wife, if I go out and start flirting with the girls and I'm married, then I'm going to lose my stripes. The brother that beat his wife After he got into trouble, Ralph Walls became his overseer. Ralph Walls was also my overseer for quite some time. In fact, Ralph Walls gave me some of the best advice I think I've ever heard in my Bethel career, and I use that advice to this very day. He's a very brilliant guy, I must say. And I think at the end of the day, Ralph Walls saved that brother and allowed him to get back to being in a prominent position working at Bethel. Number 12, discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. We've already spoken about that. Number 13, impose rigid rules and regulations. A lot of that. Number 14, punish disobedience by beating, torture, burning, cutting, rape, or tattooing, branding. I haven't seen any of that. Number 15, threaten harm to family and friends. Number 16, force individual to rape or be raped. Number 17, encourage and engage in corporal punishment. Number 18, instill dependency and obedience. A lot of that. Number 19, kidnapping. Number 20, beating. Number 21, torture. Number 22, rape. Over the years, they have surpassed the Catholic Church when it comes to child sexual abuse. That's a fact. In fact, the Australia Royal Commission there were over 1,000 cases. Isn't that something? And recently in Chicago, 2 Jehovah Witness elders were found guilty of covering up child abuse of a 6-year-old girl. So this is a terrible epidemic that exists within the religion. Number 23, separation of families. Jehovah's Witnesses have the most notorious policy when it comes to shunning and separation of families. There have been many cases where parents have died without speaking to their children because the child had been disfellowshipped or excommunicated or shunned. So they would rank number 1 on the list when it comes to separation of families. Number 24, imprisonment. Number 25, murder. I remember there was a brother at Bethel. I think he was there about 30 years, and he was of the anointed. He was a black brother. And I noticed he never was used to conduct the watchtower. He was never appointed a Bethel elder, but he had a long history of his service at Bethel. Once he told me and some other brothers about a rumor that he heard at Bethel, and that was that the society had a hitman. And you know, when he said that, we all scattered. When he said it, I was still very focused on my assignment. I wouldn't have believed him for a second. And I'm not saying that I believe him now, but knowing what I know now, I would have asked more questions. I would have really unpacked that statement to exactly what he meant, because he also mentioned a name, and I'm happy about that. So while I was at Bethel, they had the big layoff, and I saw about 3 different rounds. But with the first round of layoffs, they called us all, the entire Bethel family, in a meeting after Watchtower study, I think it was. And they talked about how the Bethel family would be reduced by means of layoffs. That brother was one of the first people that they sent away back into the field. So, are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? Is your religion a cult? Well, stay tuned and subscribe to the channel, because the next episode we will consider information control, as it helps us to put together the pieces of the puzzle. Thank you for tuning in to the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the material.